April 1944. A small railroad station lunchroom in Texas. 9 American soldiers stood outside. They wore the United States Army uniform. But the lunchroom would not seat them. They were black. Through a back door, only coffee and a sandwich were passed out. The clatter of plates came from inside. Then, roughly 24 German prisoners of war walked up. PW was stenciled on their backs. 2 American guards accompanied them. They were led inside. They sat at the tables. Full meals were served. Cigarettes smoked. Conversations flowed. Corporal Rupert Trimmingham watched it all. He stood with the other 8. His country fed its sworn enemies. At a table he could not touch. He saw the smoke curl through the glass. He felt the flimsy paper cup in his hand. What this corporal did next reached more soldiers than any order of the day. He wrote it down. By war's end, roughly 400,000 Axis prisoners were held in the United States. They moved openly by rail, crisscrossing nearly every state, assigned to camps from coast to coast. International law dictated their treatment. The 1929 Geneva Convention guaranteed them the same rations as American garrison troops, access to canteens, and full medical care. They worked on farms, ate in Army mess halls, and filled beds in military hospitals. But these trains rolled through an America rigidly divided. The segregated South enforced Jim Crow, separate waiting rooms, separate rail cars. Lunch counters served whites only. Meanwhile, nearly 1 million black Americans wore the uniform. They served in a segregated army, assigned as drivers, engineers, military police, and guards. The collision was inevitable. When a POW train stopped in a small southern town, the Geneva Convention walked the German prisoners through the front door. Army Customs sent their black American escorts to the back. That was the reality in April 1944. A troop movement from Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, bound for Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Under orders, Corporal Rupert Trimmingham and 8 other black American soldiers continued their journey across Texas. A long rail trip from Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, bound for Fort Huachuca, Arizona. A layover brought them to a railway station lunchroom, the only option for a meal. They approached the counter. The attendant refused them a table. Soldiers of the United States Army, in uniform, under orders. The rule did not bend. He pointed them to the kitchen door through that back entrance. Coffee and sandwiches were passed to them. They stood, eating quickly. Moments later, a different kind of traveler arrived. German prisoners of war, roughly 24 men, identifiable by their uniforms, entered the room. They came with their own American guards, 2 men assigned to escort them. These enemy soldiers were not sent to the kitchen door. They were led instead to the very tables denied to Trimmingham and his men. Attendants took their orders, brought them full meals. These were the sworn enemies of the nation, yet they sat, relaxed, and enjoyed, as Trimmingham later put it, quite a swell time. Instead of letting the moment pass, Corporal Trimmingham took action. He found paper, a pen. He wrote a letter to Yank, the Army Weekly, the publication read by enlisted men across every theater of the war. His words were precise, direct. He described the incident, then posed sharp questions within its lines. "Are these men sworn enemies of this country?" he asked. "Are we not American soldiers? And the starkest query, what are we fighting for?" Yank published his letter in April 1944. Not buried in a back page, but prominently displayed under a single pointed title, "Democracy, That Issue?" with Trimmingham's questions laid bare, went out to every theater of the war, to every lonely post, to every foxhole. His protest echoed across the globe. The echoes reached Yank's mailroom. Soon, by the magazine's own account, a flood of letters arrived. Many came from white soldiers themselves. They wrote from combat units in Europe. Others posted from remote Pacific outposts. These men declared the corporal's treatment shamed the uniform they all wore. They cited the blatant contradiction. Their letters arrived alongside others from soldiers across America. Yank quickly printed a selection of these heated responses. Corporal Trimmingham, reading the outpouring, sent another short letter. He reported he was deeply moved. So many white soldiers had taken up his fundamental question. Beyond the magazine pages, the pattern repeated itself, undeniable. Singer Lena Horne toured Army camps. She encountered the same stark racial divide at her own shows. She found German prisoners of war seated directly in front of black American soldiers. This happened at a camp in the South. By her own later account, she refused to play to that arrangement. She walked off the main stage and sang directly to the black troops instead. This was not one town's isolated rudeness, a single incident. This was the system. This was documented, repeated, across the war effort. It was the color line meeting itself in public. The blatant absurdity accumulated. It became impossible to ignore. The view from the other side of the glass offered its own kind of bewilderment. German prisoners of war, men raised on the racial propaganda of the Third Reich, watched the nation that defeated them enforce its own stark color line. They witnessed an intricate, baffling system of racial division. Historians of the POW program, like Arnold Kramer, documented this paradox. Many prisoners later recalled American segregation as the thing about the United States they understood least. This contradiction played out starkly within the U.S. Army itself. Black military policemen and guards routinely supervised German prisoners at camps across the South. They were issued rifles. They held direct authority over the enemy. Yet documented accounts show, at station restaurants and cafes in the segregated South, those same Black American soldiers, serving as escorts, were refused table service. They stood by while the men they guarded were seated, often enjoying full meals, smoking, conversing. An inversion of armed authority played out at the lunch counter. The black press crystallized this profound tension. The Pittsburgh Courier launched the Double V campaign, naming the war's two critical fronts: victory over fascism abroad and victory over Jim Crow at home. The war ended. The vast network of prisoner of war camps across America closed. Thousands of German prisoners were repatriated, returned to their shattered homes. But the question Rupert Trimmingham posed in his letter did not go home. It stayed in print. His words were anthologized. They were cited in arguments for equality. They were taught to new generations. It became one of the most reprinted soldiers' letters of the entire war, a singular moment, multiplied. The pressures for change intensified during the war and after campaigns. By veterans, the black press, and entertainers like Lena Horne kept the contradiction in public view. 4 years later, on July 26, 1948, President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9981. This landmark order directed equality of treatment and opportunity in the armed services. Trimmingham's letter was a powerful, widely read voice, one of many that propelled this sweeping transformation. Of Rupert Trimmingham's later life, the public record offers little detail. The Army kept his question for longer than it kept his name. Still, the image endures. A corporal at a station window in Texas in 1944, watching the enemy eat, deciding to write it all down, to ask the simple, searing question, what are we fighting for? These pivotal moments shape our understanding. We must ensure they are not lost to time. Subscribe to ensure you don't miss another story like this. And tell us, where in the world are you watching from?